Stranger Stories.
I was living in Austin, Texas at the time, but had flown out to Los Angeles for the weekend. My friends put on a yearly music festival at a biker bar out around Joshua Tree. Just a relatively small thing compared to Coachella and so on, where most of the attendees are also musicians and everybody knows each other, so we drink heavily for 3 days or so. By the end of it, you tend to need at least a week to recover. So I was flying back to Texas, wildly hungover and miserable and completely drained. I had a flight from LA to Dallas, then a quick hop to Austin from there. I was seated by the window on the left side where there was only 2 seats. Seated in the aisle seat was a middle-aged woman, totally unremarkable, just your average Texan mom. We made polite small talk for a few minutes, but I really felt like doing nothing but curling up in a ball against the wall and passing out. So shortly after we took off, I put in my headphones and started watching a movie on my iPod until I fell asleep. Throughout the movie, I thought I noticed her trying to look over my shoulder and watching the movie too, and then mumbling something like, "Oh great, just ignore me." This happened several times, but I convinced myself that I was just misreading her. Eventually I noticed her furiously scribbling writing in the margins of a beat-up leather-bound book. I kept peeking over at it, seeing that the entire book was filled with the unintelligible chicken scratch in pretty much every bit of available space in the margins. I also noticed it was an Alcoholics Anonymous book, whatever I thought, just someone with issues. I eventually fell asleep. Waking up, landing in Dallas. People started getting off the plane. Lady makes zero effort to start packing her things up and get ready to go. She kept sitting there, scribbling in her book. As I said, I am wildly hungover. I have no patience for anything that's prolonging my stay here at the airport. It gets to our row, and it's her turn to move into the aisle. Again, she does not move at all. The rows behind us are now starting to leave. I finally say, "Hey, I've got a connection to catch, so I've got to get moving here," gesturing towards the aisle and standing up. She laughs, shakes her head, looks up at me and goes, "Oh no, you are not going anywhere." I was so confused. My mind was not at its sharpest that day. I responded with, "I assure you, I am going somewhere. I am getting off this plane now." She shook her head again and said, "But you promised me you'd never leave me." Now, other people who are leaving the plane are looking at this exchange, also baffled, and I make eye contact with a few people giving that "can you believe this" look, before just edging my way out of the row saying, "Nope, I certainly never said that, I'm leaving right now." As I edged past, she laughed uncontrollably and said, "Well, I guess I gotta go with you then." At which point, she stands up behind me, leaving her purse and book and all of her belongings on the plane, and follows me out. All through the tunnel and through the terminal and up the escalator, this woman follows at my heels, grinding like a madwoman the entire time. I'm walking fast, but she's right on my heel. I didn't say anything at first, and then my mind kept saying, "Why is this happening now, of all days?" I just did not want to deal with whatever the hell breakdown this woman was having, not with the way I was feeling. I eventually get to the waiting area of the monorail, to the next terminal where my connection flight is. The lady sidles up right next to me, still grinding. At this point I say, "Alright, seriously, why are you following me? Why are you doing this?" Her response this time was, "Because I love you and you promised that you would never be apart from me." I laughed nervously and looked around at the strangers also waiting for the train, making sure I loudly announced, "No, I did not promise that. I have no idea who you are." The train arrives. I get on. She obviously follows. Now she's trying to hold my hand. I'm moving around the monorail car, texting the girl I was seeing at the time about what is going on and how I'm actually kind of afraid of this woman. My phone was at 1% though, and died before I could get a response. I was actually getting severely creeped out by this woman. Her eyes were completely vacant. There was just nothing but emptiness in her stare. She didn't blink. I was becoming sure it was only a matter of time before she snapped and proceeded to stab me or shove me down an escalator or something like that. She's still grabbing at my hand and follows me as I shove around the tiny train car. And I announce to the other strangers, I have no idea who this woman is. Seriously, can anyone get a hold of security or anything? But everyone responded with silence. Nobody else wanted to deal with this either. I felt like I was going crazy. I felt like I was a crazy one now, making random statements to the train full of strangers. We finally get to the terminal. I nearly ran to my gate with her right behind me, still saying things like, "You can't get away from me this time." I get to the gate and spend a moment scanning the crowd. I see a woman in what looked like a police uniform waiting, and I say, "Excuse me, are you security or police or anything? Do you see this lady?" But she just shakes her head at me. Everyone in the crowd just does their best to ignore us. You would be amazed at how hard it is to find security or police in a damn airport when you really need them. Finally, I got up to the desk and shamelessly interrupted the agent standing there, doing my best to maintain composure. I put on half a smile and explained to them, "Hey there, so this woman is standing right there next to me. I have no idea who she is. She has been following me around for quite some time." Both of the agents laugh. The male one makes a comment, something along the lines of, "Oh, long vacation, huh? Seriously, what can I help you with?" The crazy lady laughs with them, rolling her eyes at me. I chuckled, shook my head and said again, "No, I mean it. I have no idea who this woman is." They finally saw the depression and desperation in my eyes and the seriousness of my tone, and their smiles faded. "Can we see your boarding passes?" I handed mine. She produced hers from her pocket as I continued explaining. She was on my previous flight. She even left her purse on that plane, all the way in the other terminal. The agent speaking with themselves off to the side at the moment, while I completely ignore the woman, just swatting away her hand as she tries to hold mine. The agent makes a few quick, hushed calls and then comes back over and just says, "Come with me." They immediately whisk me away through a door and slam it on my pursuer. I am loaded onto the plane about 10 minutes before any other passenger, as a stream of staff filters one by one, offering a new apology. Eventually, the rest of the passengers get on. They all shoot me a glance as they pass my row, some of sympathy, some of sheer confusion. The man who sits behind me asked me, "Hey man, what was that?" I give him the brief version, and he tells me that she had a complete and total meltdown the second I went on the plane, screaming, tearing out her hair, pounding her feet. They took her away in handcuffs, he said. "You really didn't know her?" he asked me. "Nope, I didn't. To this day, I still wonder all the time what the hell was going on with that woman. I barely even have told this story to many of my friends because it's just incredibly unbelievable. I have never received any other information about the incident, never learned who she was or why she thought I promised her anything, let alone eternal companionship and love."